All right, here with John Kurtz. John, thanks for taking some time with us again. Always a pleasure. By the way, if you don't follow his newsletter, tell us how we can find Open for Business, your Big 12 newsletter.
Yeah, appreciate that. Just got one out this morning. Just go to ofbnews.com. So ofbnews.com. Or go find me on Twitter at @JLKurtz. You got the links there. So, yeah.
I thought your lead story on the newsletter today was fascinating. Tell us more about Cody Campbell and what maybe the no longer happening college commission looks like, or what that means for the Big 12.
Man, I love that guy so much. Just yesterday, I'll tell this little story about Cody Campbell, who, for those who aren't familiar, multi-billionaire booster for Texas Tech, who was going to be one of the leads on the Presidential Commission for College Sports. He's a guy that it's been reported has a direct line to President Trump. But, man, Texas fans are going after him because, obviously, Texas Tech has been recruiting up a storm, right? They get the number one kid in the state of Texas for the class of 26. So all these Texas fans have been fighting with Tech fans back and forth. And one of them said, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. It was like, hey, you're going to need more than just one class to really compete at the top, bud. And he tweeted back at him yesterday. It was just like, I'm not going anywhere, bud. So I was seeing that going around with a lot of memes from Texas Tech fans yesterday, which is great. But, yeah, I mean, so there's this USA Today report, and I think it was Matt Hayes. I want to make sure I give a proper attribution there. Matt Hayes from USA Today has this report where it's kind of a profile of Cody Campbell, but buried in it, maybe not buried, but a couple paragraphs in that he's talking about, okay, Presidential Commission, according to sources that he has talked to, is not really going to happen anymore. It had been postponed. But he said this is going to, according to a source, work the way a lot of things do with President Trump, which is he'll find one guy to be a point man to report to him on it. The next paragraph was, hey, I asked Cody Campbell directly, are you going to be that guy? And he just said it was kind of an avoidance answer, but it was, hey, I've been talking to President Trump for a while about college sports. He really cares about this. And it's kind of, if you're reading between the lines, like it sure seems like Cody Campbell's going to be that guy. And then later there's a paragraph about how much the SEC and Big Ten hates Cody Campbell, which makes perfect sense. He's somebody that's going to fight for the greater good of college football as a whole and not the current system that we have right now, which is two conferences driving the ship and everybody else can kind of fill in wherever you want to go. So I'm a huge proponent of it. If you want to read more, definitely Open for Business newsletter, ofbnews.com. But the thing that I really like about Cody Campbell is big tenet of what he wants to do is use the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961, which I know sounds crazy, but it allows everybody to pool their.
Everybody's read up on that.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm sure you've done the requisite reading.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's what allowed the NFL, I believe, to like pool all the rights together for the teams. So think about right now, we have all these different conference TV deals, but if you pooled it all together as one entity, college football, the article reports, the estimates are you could double the worth of that, which right now is $3 billion. So there'd be more money in it for everybody if you did that. But of course, the SEC and Big Ten would lose a little bit of power if they did. If you did that, it all leads down the Project Rudy road, which is something I would also suggest people read up on. It's a Super League proposal, but it's one that would split like the top 70 teams in college football and then divide them up basically in conferences, but geographically. Imagine that, something that makes sense.
Imagine that.
And so that's kind of my ultimate dream. And basically what Cody Campbell is advocating for is that type of a system. If you go read, he's written a lot for the Federalist. You can go read some of his longer form stuff here. He's a really well thought out guy. So yeah, that's kind of the latest update. And I was like, man, we have media days. I know everyone's excited about that. It felt like it slipped through the cracks a little bit to me yesterday. And I was getting back last night. Like, man, this seems great. Like, I don't know. The Big 12 having a real seat at the table on this thing is such a huge, huge thing for the conference.
Well, you mentioned media days. We're at day 2 of media day, right? Day 1 featured Brett Yormark at the stage. What were kind of the key comments he made that kind of stood out to you?
Well, I think no one is surprised that he stood up there and really advocated again for the 5+11 playoff, right? You knew that was going to happen. I think the way he said it, like, hey, this isn't the NFL, a lot of people perceive that to be kind of a shot at Tony Petitti, who's the Big Ten commissioner and has been the one most pushing for 4-4-2-2, the 4 auto bids for the Big Ten and SEC, 2 for the Big 12 and ACC. So, was he maybe a little bit more pointed with it than I would have? Possibly, but Brett Yormark doesn't really shy away from much of anything at this point. And if anyone was surprised, I mean, he's like already doubled and tripled down. That was really like a quadrupling down up there for 5+11. So it didn't surprise me at all. I like that he said, I'm not surprised, but I like that he said, hey, I think we're going to get 2 teams in. Like, start that narrative now, right? Last year, it just got away from the Big 12 so much, where the preseason poll and the fact that you had teams 13 and 16 and BYU and Arizona State, that they were the stories of the league. Like, there was never much consideration for the Big 12 in terms of being an at-large conference. So start that now. Put that out there now. Take away the media poll, which they did, which, gives people ammo to be like, oh, this conference isn't really that good. I think they're doing all the right things in terms of trying to like set a precedent early on in the season or just get a narrative out there that can be proactive, which is what, the Big 12 just never did back in the days, before UCF was in the conference, man. I mean, the leadership, and I think Bob Bowlesby did a better job than people give him credit for, but they were not proactive at all. Back to the days of Dan Beebe back in like 2010 when Nebraska, Mizzou, all those schools left. They were just so reactive, and I love that Yormark was really proactive with that. The only issue I had, he was talking about that preseason poll, and he did say that Arizona State really got hurt by, and I was kind of like, I think to me the better message with that, because I saw like Tom Fernelli, who's a national college football guy, I was like, what's he talking about? Like Arizona
Marcello
State
has a piece out on Wednesday morning about that as well.
Okay, because I saw people reacting like, well, Arizona State still got into the playoff and I was like, the better message I think is BYU got hurt by that because they got zero consideration for an at-large spot when they had a better resume than Miami, better strength of record, better strength of schedule, better win, and yet they didn't get any consideration. They were 17th. Miami's just outside the playoff, right? That, to me, would be the message. I think you can argue Arizona State didn't get as good a treatment as they should have because, I mean, they finished behind Boise. Sure. Like, that's, people will say, well, they got a bye and it was all fine. Well, yeah, okay, but literally with like 3 weeks left in the season, we were talking about, hey, can Tulane or Army jump up and take the Big 12 spot? Like, so, yeah, Arizona State was not getting enough credit, but it's a tougher sell, I think, than to me just saying, hey, BYU, an at-large spot. That's the message I would be pushing if I had to be picky with Brett Yormark's comments.
Day 2 is about to start. We had 8 teams on Tuesday, 8 teams today on Wednesday. What are the key storylines, John? Because I'm trying to think, what are the key points? I think last year there's a lot of, Deion was here. What was that going to look like? It feels like there aren't any really big storylines coming around the media day right now. What are a couple of things that you're focused on?
It's really funny you say that because so just personally, obviously I'm doing a lot of K-State stuff too. So yesterday was like the busy day where K-State guys are coming through and we're recording all those for my K-State podcast, 3 And I was like, man, I wish it was flip-flops because today's kind of a lazier day, and no offense, I've got all these, I'm looking at Jordan Seaton in Colorado right now. I'm seeing all these guys around.
It's giant mascot about.
Yeah, I know. All the mascot. You got to be careful what you say. We got the Baylor Bear in the house here.
In the house.
Yeah. What's up? Hey, I picked Baylor in the Big 12 championship game, my friend. Yeah.
Wow.
Sawyer Robertson.
Breaking news right here. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see you in Waco.
But see, Baylor was yesterday, which was a more exciting day. I don't know. To me, it's just today. I think Deion will be a storyline, but I think the big thing with Colorado is like I was wondering. Okay, not that the shine's off Deion, but it's not as novel as it was last year.
Yeah.
So what happens now? And you're like, what's the storyline with Colorado? Well, really, the big thing is okay. You're replacing Shedeur Sanders. You got 2 quarterbacks that are pretty high profile. The story is who's going to be their quarterback. Well, Deion says, here's your story. I'm bringing both of them to media days. So I think that's really what a lot of today will probably center on nationally. You're not going to have Yormark speaking publicly, at least to my knowledge. Maybe he'll do some Radio Row type of stuff, breakout stuff, but he's not going to be at a podium, so you're not going to get big storylines there. You probably have less of a national reporting presence here on day 2.
Yeah.
Just the dynamics of it. There's not a lot. Like Oklahoma State is one of the biggest Big 12 brands in terms of what they've been the last 20 years, but like, you look down the list of Oklahoma State's players that are here, like, I don't know. I mean, no offense, Mike Gundy, but they're such an unknown and they're coming off such an aberration of a season last year. I think Utah is intriguing. And, Devin Dampier was voted the newcomer of the year in the league. Yep. So I think that will definitely help in terms of boosting their storyline a little bit. Yeah, I mean, Houston, I like Willie Fritz. I think they're on the come up. But, the biggest thing they could have done is bring Connor Wegman. Connor Wegman's not here. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll be interested to see if something naturally kind of pops out of all this other than the obvious, which to me, would definitely be Deion, Julian Lewis, and everything that's happening at their quarterback spot.
You may have just answered this, but is there a team we're not talking enough about, a team you think can surprise some people in the Big 12?
Well, I mean, I don't – it's probably not fair to say Baylor – is like that team because they are getting a lot of love, but I am very high on Baylor. Like, I think they're a legit Big 12 championship contender. I love Sawyer Robertson. I love Bryson Washington, who is just a beast down the stretch. Their running back. I think their offense is just going to be so good. One of the teams, I mean, Utah is another team that like early on in the offseason, I was like, I might pick Utah to go to the Big 12 championship. I backed off that a little bit. But if Devin Dampier stays healthy, like they're going to have a defense.
Yeah.
And it's just like people sort of forget. They're kind of flying under the radar a little bit right now because of what happened each of the last 2 years, which has largely been dictated by quarterback injury. And they were like 1-5 in 1-score games last year. So they were in a ton of close games. I mean, that could flip pretty easily. One other one I would give you that I think we have also forgotten about, and it's crazy because they're the only Big 12 team currently to have won a playoff game, and that's TCU. But they've got a really tough schedule, and that is the thing that will be really interesting with them is that they've got obviously SMU, but they open the season at North Carolina, and then their Big 12 schedule, man, they're at Arizona State, at BYU. They have a lot of tough road games this year. So I think that's why you see their win total at 6.5 instead of that group with like 7.5, 8.5. But man, Josh Hoover threw for like 4,000 yards last year. Like Josh Hoover's a really good quarterback. Yes. If you look at the 24/7 talent composite, which just takes the totality of the roster and shows star power in recruiting, basically. Last year, they haven't updated it yet this year, but last year they had the best roster in terms of overall talent of anybody in the Big 12. So if they take another step forward, and they finished the year really strong last year, if they take another step forward, they absolutely could be a team that competes for a Big 12 championship. But I feel like most of the time you're seeing them in kind of that like 6 to 8 range in terms of preseason Big 12 projections. So, yeah, I'd point toward TCU, another one of those teams.
Got to ask the UCF-related question. Anytime Scott Frost is in front of a microphone, he seems to say something that gets activated headlines. If it's not something about NAL and college football, yesterday was about Nebraska. What'd you make? I saw in your newsletter, you were a tad skeptical of the comments, didn't necessarily think they were a good news play for UCF. But what'd you make overall of the Frost experience yesterday?
Well, what's interesting, and I tried to convey this in the newsletter to make sure, like, I was giving you my full thought process. So I feel like I was kind of like everybody else, where it's like I saw the initial Chris Vanini quote, and it was just, what did you learn from taking the Nebraska? Like, don't take the wrong job. And I was like, oh boy, I don't like that. And but that's because I'm like, man, if I'm a UCF fan, I'm thinking I want a coach that's introspective about what went wrong and what happened, and I'll take responsibility, all of that stuff. As a K-State fan, like, rivalry with Nebraska growing up, that was the team I hated the most, to be honest. And so I love to hate Nebraska. So I've been paying attention for a while, and I saw, the Scott Frost era, I know there was a lot of frustration about, hey, this guy's kind of throwing people under the bus, not taking enough responsibility. And so I thought, well, I'm not sure that I love that. But then, as happens a lot, and I don't think Chris Vanini did this like with any malicious intent or anything like that, but he puts a little bit more context under the quote, like more of that quote. And I'm like, okay. And then I talked to somebody with UCF yesterday about it, and they were kind of explaining to me, like, hey, I mean, I think the idea with what he is saying about that is, like, the timing didn't work out great, but you feel an obligation to go back. Like, how can you not take that job? But probably needed a little more seasoning, had a great team that was coming back at UCF the next year. So the timing would have worked out better if it was a year or two down the line. And I've seen the quote about, don't mess with how he's talking about climbing the ladder of success, right? They don't tell you to stop when you're happy. So all that made a lot more sense. And I was like, when I see the rest of that, I'm like, okay, that this is kind of one of those made for content quotes that gets out there and upsets people. And part of the thing that you have going on here, and sometimes I think it's just subconsciously, I've done it myself, putting a quote out. It was last year, Ross Dellinger at Big 12 Media Days, where kind of the same thing that Vanini did. You kind of frame it in a way where afterwards I was like, maybe that wasn't totally fair, because it's going to explode. Nebraska is such a big, passionate fan base, and they're a lightning rod, and people like to, whether it's people like me, make fun of them, or their fans like get frustrated, upset. You knew it was going to be a quote that really escalated. And so I think that had something to do with it too. So ultimately, would I be very concerned about it as a UCF fan? No. And honestly, like, Scott Frost, I thank you, buddy. I love anything that gets under Nebraska fans' skin, man. I am all for that.
Yeah, I think, look, covering the team closely, he said that in different words since he's been back at UCF, right? I think, to your part, the jarring part of the quote was like, whoa, he's never been that upfront about it, right? But it's been very clear about the ladder of success and stay where you're happy, and it's good to be back. He's made those little comments, right? So I don't think it's surprising to UCF fans. I think, though, he's actually, what's interesting is he typically, Nebraska's an off-topic subject. Like, he won't talk about it. He shakes the head no, doesn't want to answer it. So I think we were all kind of surprised he even entertained the conversation, because he's been pretty smart about just sidestepping and moving into the forward part. But
who actually asked the question? Do you know who it was that asked the question?
Yesterday?
Yeah.
It was Vanini.
It was Vanini.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I understand him and Frost had kind of like a one-on-one in a side room.
So that was not at the podium.
It was not at the podium.
So here's the other, right?
It was not captured anywhere else outside of those two individuals in that room.
Gotcha. Which makes a lot more sense, again, that's where you get the quote. So again, Radio Row, like, just how the sausage is made. Like, I don't ever really get to see anything on the podium because you're always there trying to get interviews and stuff. And so I didn't know if that came from the podium or just from him. So, Which
is interesting because afterwards, then they, for those who don't know, they do a breakout podium, right? So it's a breakout podium. And he was kind of re-asked about, like, hey, and he was just like, I'm not talking about that. Like, I'm not living. Like, you can tell instantly, like, whatever the recognition of what had just happened hit him. Right. But only Chris and Scott know, I guess, what that conversation was. So we'll figure out how that plays out in the future.
Interesting.
Last thing for you. One of the things you do that I really love, you do the anonymous player survey. When you're right? So a couple questions for you. One, how'd you come up with that idea? But two, what's the reception from players? Are they open to talking to you, or do you find people are like guarded with stuff? Like, how do you approach trying to get some of that information?
Well, number one, to answer that question, as with anything great, it was stolen. I mean, I've just seen it done a lot before, but the one that I really liked was The Athletic, and I'm not even an NBA guy, and I can't remember who it is, but I've always seen their NBA anonymous player survey is like really in-depth. They do an awesome job of it. Somehow they get, I don't know if they do it All-Star Weekend, they get like 100+ players, and they get lots of great quotes, and that's where I kind of took the format of like, oh, that would be great with the Big 12 as much as you can here. You know, it's just literally me running around trying to grab guys in between stuff as much as I can. As far as how open they are, I would say it depends. You get guys on opposite. There's not much in between. You either get guys who are like very open and want to give you really interesting quotes, or guys who are pretty guarded about it, and or they've been doing all these interviews where it's like coach speak, like say nothing. That even when I tell them it's anonymous, they're still kind of like in that mode sometimes. Yeah. But I got some interesting stuff yesterday. I'll give you the funniest thing, or best thing that I heard yesterday that yes, you will get in the anonymous newsletter is I was asking, and this is where guys do get guarded sometimes. I asked like, what's the most NIL you've heard of a player getting, and then what's the craziest thing that a coach or somebody has tried to do to get you to transfer to their school or in the portal. And I had a kid tell me yesterday, it's like, oh, I got offered land. And I was like, land? We're out here like giving you a deed to like get some acreage to come to my school. So I guess that's out there.
Did he take the land?
I don't think so.
That's a really good business move, by the way.
Honestly, I was like, dude, honestly, like that's a pretty. But I wouldn't have been smart enough as a 19-year-old to do that though. But now I get it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, where can we find the newsletter? Where can we find more about John?
Yeah, so the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com, ofbnews.com, or you can just find me on Twitter at @JOKurtz, and the link's in the bio. And then John Kurtz on YouTube, just JOHNKURTZ. And
you do a live show every week, right? Aren't you on Twitter or YouTube every week?
Yeah, so it'll stream. Also, if you do follow me on Twitter and you prefer that to YouTube, it will stream the live shows on Wednesdays, typically Wednesdays and Sundays. Awesome. Sunday nights through Twitter, so you can find it that way. Yeah.
Cool, John. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, anytime, Adam. Thanks.